How do you sort out the so-called jargon from real-world practices that work? Do the members of your organization find some business or technology advice utterly confusing? Welcome to Real Talk with Sam Holcman. In this program, we set the record straight, and in terms that business people and technology people can understand. Now, here is your host, Sam Holcman.
Welcome to this edition of Real Talk. I'm Sam Holcman. Thank you for joining me on this particular broadcast. And the topic for this broadcast is artificial intelligence training data. And the topic came up as I was sitting here over the weekend trying to organize my stuff. And every once in a while, you have to do that. Thousands of documents that I've either developed, put on the files of my computer, developed myself, or thought I'd be interested at in the future. And so I did that. And all of a sudden it dawned on me this monumental task that was in front of me. And I decided to start off by putting my stuff into two different containers. A digital file cabinet, if I can use that phrase, and a digital trash can. I want you to think about those two words when it comes to what training data is being used today by these AI engines. I think you picked up the analogy pretty quickly. You don't know if it's coming from a file cabinet that has some credibility from 1% to 100%, or it's a digital trash can that has information that is worth zero, or in some cases, negative amount, because it's actually there to invade your environment or provide spurious or incorrect information for the purpose of misleading people. Wow. So let's talk about the file cabinet first, the good stuff. What I first realized was that without knowing the dates of these files, I was almost completely lost, because some of these files were updates for stuff that I had done before. Now, once again, let's come back to artificial intelligence training data. Does it know what is the, quote, correct version? Well, I think you know the answer to that too. This is getting kind of scary. And I'm just talking about my own stuff. Now, here's the underlying issue. As we have grown in the digital world, it's sort of a mixed blessing. I'll use the phrase unlimited space to store stuff. And one of the key ways that we tend to sort of store stuff digitally is alphabetically, which has no structure at all. Well, it does. It's 26 letters of the alphabet. And on top of that, a bunch of digits that may be in front of or in back of those 26 letters of the alphabet, depending on how you decide to store that stuff. So I've got proposals, I've got drafts, I've got reports, I've got ideas, I've got random thoughts, I've got stuff from other people, I've got files that I've downloaded, I have things that are copyrighted from other people that I shouldn't be reproducing by any means, because that is essentially intellectual property theft. I'm not going to do that. And just getting started, I said, oh my goodness, this is astounding. So, what is the best practice, so to speak? How do I figure out what to keep and what not to keep? And some of the things I was chuckling at. In other words, I've been at enterprise and business architecture since the 70s. 50 years of stuff that I've been able to digitize. Well, I can assure you that what I referred to myself as best practices back then, based on what I knew, isn't the practice that we're using today, yet it still existed on my computer. And somebody innocently looking at my files doesn't know that. Well, how do I know this on the internet? How do you know this on the internet? How does the AI engine know this? And what is best practice? Here's what actually happened at the end. I ended up saving, you ready for this? 6% of what I started with. Now I'm summarizing months of work. I dedicated a certain number of units. I don't want to tell anybody anything here, positive or negative, how long this took or how short it took. It's up to you. But let me summarize. A small percentage of the stuff that I had was actually what I would consider to be useful going forward and what I would consider to be best practices. So here we go again. The miracle of artificial intelligence, the miracle of best practices, they don't mix. We don't know on the internet what is good and what is not. Yet we are blindly spending, not me, but others, billions of dollars concentrating on the processing, but once again not looking at the fuel that this requires, which is good data. We are pushing harder than ever with our clients to what we call EAI, Enterprise Augmented Information. Data that is used to train our own engine, if I can use that phrase, on data that is vetted. And it's turning out to be a task that is taking some time in organizations because in order to do this, they've got to figure out the 6% that is really what they want to keep and use and actually move forward with. Think about the miracles out there. As the phrase goes, caveat emptor, let the buyer beware.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Talk. Be sure to join your host, Sam Holcman, again for another edition of our program. We'll have more real topics of discussion then.